lead story is Deebo Samuel. Look at me. Take care of me. And that's what the San Francisco 49ers did. Spent the early portions of the game trying to make sure Deebo was happy. Just like Brandon Ayuk, same thing to the Niners. Held out. When he came back, 6 games, no touchdowns. Stop pandering to wide receivers, 49ers. Build your O&D lines. Your best receiver is a 7th rounder who came into the league with no ego and still doesn't have one, Jawan Jennings. You start drafting these wide receivers in the 1st and 2nd round, about a couple years in, get me the ball. Deebo isn't washed, but he's not what he used to be. And clearly, inarguably, Brock Purdy was forcing the ball to Deebo Sweeney to make sure he was okay. Don't be shocked if A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts, and they waste a first half doing the same damn thing as they face the Steelers. And if Pittsburgh wins and Philadelphia's first quarter and a half is trying to get A.J. Brown the ball, that's what happened last night. Brock Purdy went into that game, and in fact, I looked this morning, first 12 offensive plays, 4 of 12 drawn up for Deebo. You should have had 8 of 12 drawn up for George Kittle. He's still elite. Kittle's amazing. And you're having to take care and babysit and coddle. This is not the NBA. It's the NFL. You play to win the game. And it was an ugly night. It was a wet night. Matt Stafford couldn't do anything right in the first half, but the Rams came to play a game and win. No agendas, not trying to placate anybody. I mean, listen, Cooper Kupp could be upset. He's been unseated by Puka Nacua. Clearly, Cooper Kupp blocks as much as he goes out for a pass. But it was Matt Stafford, Kyron Williams, Sean McVay, Cooper Kupp, Havenstein, all about winning a game, no agendas. Stafford had a very bad opening half, right? I mean, he almost threw about 9 picks. But you know what they did at halftime? They're like, you know what, let's just run the ball. Let's just run the ball. Did Puka get upset? Did anybody pout? Did anybody go into the locker room? The Rams came out and said, it's all about ball. Let's just run the football. Stafford was off his game. And then eventually Matt, couple nice escapes. Kyron Williams, terrific young player. Just a terrific young player. Blake Corum getting snaps. Puka, Cooper Kupp. I mean, it was just all about football. And the Niners, by the way, here's another thing about the Niners, that Devondre Campbell, a linebacker, because Dre Greenlaw was healthy, came in and played and was great. And they let him be the starter, and Devondre Campbell pouted. Refused to go into the game in the 3rd quarter. Pouted. Took his ball and went home. Can you imagine that? Suddenly now San Francisco's not just old and expensive and brittle. They got a culture issue. Get Deebo demanding the ball. You had Brandon Ayuk holding out of camp. You got Campbell, the linebacker. Does he think he's Fred Warner? Does he think he's Dre Greenlaw? Hufanga? Bosa? Well, how many Pro Bowls? I mean, give me a break. So, you know, it was a classic example of this, by the way, a very young Rams team. That defense, nobody's making any money. That Rams team, it's like a college team. No egos. On the road, sloppy and wet. Ugly first half. I think even their kicker's a rookie. I mean, everybody's young on the Rams, except old Matt Stafford, who was absolutely great when it mattered the most.
Okay. The score was 12-6, and Matthew Stafford tried to give that game away. And then we just said that in the second half, it wasn't like Matthew Stafford who led them to victory. They decided to run the ball. Whereas, you know, the 49ers had like a whopping, 63 yards rushing. I mean, I don't know if Colin's going to talk about Purdy later in the show, like at the top of next hour or something. So it's like I'm trying to figure out if I'm like going to discuss Purdy and the 49ers as a whole, or if this is more about kind of Deebo. So I'll just kind of tackle it on both, honestly. I mean, I've listened. This is one of the rare things for what that happens on Thursday night going into Friday night is that I can like listen to Colin's podcast before, which he posted like last night, as well as John Middlecoff and hearing what they're saying and stuff like that. So it's always interesting to kind of get perspectives before I even kind of jump into this, and it's really making me kind of lose my mind, honestly. I mean, let's just get this out of the way. Brock Purdy did not play amazing. Okay, and he had a couple really bad plays, and especially the throw, obviously, for that interception was just a bad decision more than anything, more than just even the throw itself. It was just the wrong decision for where you're at in the game. And part of Brock's superpowers are supposed to be able to make those great decisions, right? Like that is his brand of superpower, is consistency, and essentially turbocharging what it is to be a game manager. And I don't use that in a negative way, by no means. So it's not a negative thing. And so he did fail in that moment. But in no way was that loss just kind of lumped onto him, which is what's really, really irritating. Because again, you have someone like Colin who thinks Matthew Stafford is elite and amazing. And to be fair, I think Matthew Stafford is great and elite, although I leave room to be like, well, he's older now, though, and so it's harder for me to evaluate who is Matt Stafford today, right? December 24, it's a little bit harder for me to understand. And he made awful throws, some of the most shockingly awful throws you could ever imagine, where if it wasn't Matt Stafford, you would say, this is a backup quarterback, get this kid out of here. If he was up for a contract, you'd say, you can't pay him money. He's not worth $60 million a year. You would be doing all that type of stuff. And so that's what's kind of really driving me crazy. And we're saying, well, Matt Stafford was good when it mattered. So was Brock Purdy, but his team did not catch the ball. I mean, he was laying it on them multiple times. Kittle, Deebo, Jennings, and like all quarterbacks have bad throws and bad decisions in them. Every single quarterback, every single game virtually. And so when the players aren't making the plays and catching the ball when the quarterback is delivering the ball accurately into the right read, and then you combine that with some bad throws on the quarterback, it then compounds. And it becomes this kind of just this mess of a situation. And you can't lump that on Brock Purdy. And Shanahan deserves a ton of blame because it was his game plan. He was the one that's like, let's get the ball to Deebo. And he just kept calling these slant routes and whatnot. And nobody was ever open. And that's what drives me crazy. Also, what John Middlecoff said yesterday, because he's like, oh my God, Brock Purdy, that was not a good game. And then he like goes on and talks about how Deebo's dropping the ball and how nobody was open. There was no one to throw to. And it's like, well, so then what do you want Brock Purdy to do? If nobody's open, then what do you want Purdy to do? You then essentially needed Purdy to play a flawless game. That's essentially what you would need him to do, for him to not make a single bad decision, which I get it. You want a quarterback who can do that, but like that doesn't happen. That happens very rarely. That does not even for the elite top level quarterbacks. You think Tom Brady never made a mistake, never made a bad throw? Of course. And so again, it's like for me, so much of the evaluation of Purdy, it's like unless he plays flawless, they just want to just drop him into a well, never to be found again. And that's always been my pet peeve about my takes, about seeing takes on Purdy. I'm not sitting here and arguing that Brock Purdy should be mentioned in terms of the same level of quarterback play as Mahomes, as Allen, and Burrow. That's not my argument. That's never been my argument. But the problem is people use games like this as a reference to just say, like, he's a bottom quarterback. He's a backup quarterback. He was drafted last for a reason. And that is just too far extreme. Just like when he has a great game, I don't use it as a reference point to be like, that's why he's a top 2 quarterback. Like, I don't do that either. It's just such these kind of extremes. But like, dude, we want to say Matthew Stafford and all this stepped up when it mattered and the Rams knew what they needed to do. The score was 12-6. The score was 9-6 going into like the final seconds of the game. Let's not pretend like the Rams brought it, okay? And also make no mistake about it, you have Puka Nacua making huge catches again. Circus catches, catching the ball off of people's helmets and stuff. So like, we got to stop here. Puka Nacua is carrying his weight in more than gold. What's more expensive than gold these days? Diamonds? So let's stop pretending. And again, yeah, Matthew Stafford, again, makes beautiful throws. And again, I think Matthew Stafford is a special quarterback. So I'm not trying to knock Stafford. But, like, let's not act like Stafford's like, come on, boys, I'm going to lead us to victory. And he just put the team on his back. It's not what happened. If Puka Nacua wasn't there, they're probably not winning that game. And now we've just admitted that the 49ers don't actually have the roster that they've once had. And even the same names that they had are not the same players. Deebo, he's not the same player. He's not making those catches. Balls are hitting him in the hands and he's dropping them, which would have ripped off a massive run, which arguably would have been a touchdown, or at least would have gotten them right there for one. So now you're robbing that play from someone like a Purdy. Let's take away the helmet catch from Stafford. Take away that catch. Take away the crazy circus catches that Puka Nacua made against the Bills. So we got to be fair when we're assessing all of this type of stuff. I mean, Stafford literally could have had, like, if memory serves me correctly, like a minimum 3, 2 without a shadow of a doubt. Like the one hit in the chest, like truly just right in the center of the chest again. I don't remember exactly who it was. And the other one hit in the hands. And then there was another one where you could have been like, oh, that could have been intercepted. It would have been like a nicer play. But there was 2 where it was like, I don't know. I mean, the only way how you could say you dropped it is because you were so shocked that the ball went to you in the first place that it was just kind of like, I don't even know how the ball even got to me. I mean, just bad throws that would have had game-changing possibilities. So if the 49ers caught those balls, ran into the house, and they ended up winning the game, is the take Matthew Stafford is washed? Is that the take? Because the fact that didn't happen had nothing to do with Stafford. Nothing to do with Stafford. It was just sheer luck, honestly. In Matthew Stafford's world, at least. So if he played essentially the exact same way, but the outcome changed because of no luck of himself, no skill of himself, why is then the consensus he found a way to win, but someone like Brock Purdy didn't? He stepped up when he needed to, but the other QB didn't. Doesn't make sense. That's why you got to really look at how you get there. Greg Cosell just said that the other day, and I loved it when he was talking about stats. And he was comparing Russell Wilson's stats were similar to Bo Nix's stats for the Broncos. But that it's like kind of generally felt as, you know, that the Broncos look better, that Bo Nix feels better, at least, again, for the Broncos when comparing the 2 years. And it's like, why is that? And Greg Cosell said something that I just really liked. He's like, you know, the stats are the stats, but, and, you know, you got to see how you're getting there. And this is a perfect example of how you're getting there. So, I don't know. Again, I want to be very clear. I'm not out here kind of saying that, you know, Brock Purdy played awesome and his team failed him and this, that. Yeah, if Brock Purdy was better, could he have helped lead his team to overcome some of those issues? Sure. Absolutely. But there is a laundry list of quarterbacks who would have failed in that exact situation that we don't harp on day after day after day after day after day. That's my biggest gripe with all of the Purdy conversation. I am not here saying, you know, Purdy's elite. He's a top quarterback in the NFL. Don't blame him for anything like that. I'm not saying that either. And that's what always gets lost in these takes. It's just trying to have an honest conversation about where he's at. And that's why this always makes me think of this.
Not you. It's not your fault. It's not your fault.
So, there you go. It's not your fault, Brock Purdy. It is not your fault. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the 49ers and their 12-6 loss against the Rams? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment. So whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here, and I'd absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.